Hi, everybody. This is Samantha, and I am so excited to invite you to week 10 of our Parenting Inside Out series. It is so surprising to me that we are this far through. Today, we're going to talk about timeout, privilege removal, and advocating for our children. So, like we usually do in class, I want you to take a moment and think about any victories you have to celebrate this week. If you are this far, that means that you're 3/4 of the way through this class. That's a great victory to celebrate. I know that the weather's getting warmer and it's very much turning into summer. Maybe you have some exciting victories that you're celebrating as a family, or maybe your kids are, or maybe other people that you care about have some exciting things. Take a moment and think about those. There are no victories that are too small to celebrate. So this week, when we are talking about discipline, I really want us to be thinking about what is the point, what is our point when we are using discipline strategies? What are we trying to get to? What is our goal? I think emotion regulation is a really common factor in incidents that lead up to maybe using some discipline strategies. And it's also a really important skill that we need to be practicing ourselves and teaching our children to utilize. So I want us to watch this quick video where we can learn a little bit more about emotion regulation.
Hi, I'm Catherine Mogul. I'm the Director of Training for the UCLA Nathanson Family Resilience Center. I'm thinking about emotions. I think we can all remember back to a time when we were kids and emotions just kind of washed over us and took over our bodies, and we weren't able to express it. And a parent's job is really to help define that process and give their child the words to be able to express and deal with emotions. The first step to this is just labeling your own emotions. As an adult, you have experiences all throughout the day that bring up different feelings. And when you have that, just say it. So if you get cut off in traffic, just say, I feel frustrated right now. The next thing you could do is label your child's emotions. As you see them moving through their day and you see different experiences bringing up feelings for them, say, you feel frustrated because that Lego set won't go together the right way, or positively, you feel really happy because you really love this TV show. Then you want to define your own coping strategies. You want to tell your child all the things you do that help you feel better. So maybe for you, that's taking 3 slow, deep breaths. When your child sees you taking the deep breaths, then turn to them and say, I took 3 slow, deep breaths. That labels it for them so that they learn the name for the strategy. And you also want to support your child's coping. Identify the things that you know help your child to feel better. Maybe that's getting a hug from a parent, or playing a quick video game that you know that they love that kind of helps them to take a break. And again, label that. Label the strategy for them so they know that that's what you're doing and what you're helping them to use. And you can do all of these strategies, you can teach all of these strategies in everyday life. You can teach it through play. So you can just be the sportscaster while your child is playing and label what they're doing, describe what they're doing, but make sure to take an extra beat to pay attention to the emotions in the play. So you may say, you're taking the dolls on a walk, and they look really happy to be walking together. These strategies are really the building blocks for your child's future success in life.
So So if I was writing a learning goal this week, I could write about many different things. One that I came up with was I would like to learn how to use privilege removal and or timeout instead of spanking. Another learning goal could be that I would like to learn about what privilege removal is, or I would like to learn the best way to do timeout. Some other things could be in regards to other behavior management strategies that you're interested in learning about. So some takeaway messages are logical consequences and rewards need to be age appropriate and focused on teaching responsibility, not punishment. So this is really important. This concept of discipline versus punishment. Discipline, logical consequences I would consider to be discipline. Routines and structure and schedule, all of those are considered discipline as well. Chores are discipline. Punishment is something different. So we want to focus on teaching that responsibility. That is really the point to discipline. Consequences and rewards should be related to the behavior, reasonable and respectful of the child's dignity. So shame-based consequences are not what's going to be the best choice when disciplining our children. Again, we are not focusing on punishment, we're focusing on discipline, and the point to discipline is to teach responsibility. And so teaching responsibility does not involve a loss of dignity. Time out is a brief, mild consequence that can be used for misbehavior. That's a third takeaway message we're going to get today. So I want you to open your purple workbook to handout 10.1.1. It's 2 pages, and it's called the Rewards and Consequences Plan. And we're going to fill out this for our kids. Maybe I have multiple kids and I want to fill out different plans for each of my kids. Maybe my kids are different ages, or they respond to different behavior management techniques in different ways. That would be a reason why I may split this up into different sections for my different kids. So the instructions say, develop a consequences and reward plan for each of your children. Use the worksheet from lesson 9.2 to give you ideas. Think about your family vision and your family rules when designing consequences and rewards. Think about each child's love language and temperament too. It is okay to ask your children what would be motivating for them. Bring your completed plans to the next class session. Fill out a plan for each of your children. So I put child's name Stella, and for the reward side, I decided Stella's going to be 10 years old. So this first side, we're talking about rewards. So these are positive incentives for on-track behavior. So there's natural rewards for on-track behavior, compliance, and then down here are logical rewards. So the difference between natural and logical rewards are that a natural reward or a natural consequence is something that the universe puts upon you. So for instance, if I go to bed at 8 p.m. And give myself plenty of time to get lots of sleep before I get up at 6 a.m., I'm going to be well rested and feel good when I wake up 10 hours later. That would be a natural reward. A logical reward is something that somebody gives to you. So when you go to the dentist and you get to choose a toy from the prize box afterwards, that's a logical reward. It's something that somebody has designed for you to receive and work towards. So our kids, when we're raising our kids, we want to make sure that we are using natural rewards and logical rewards. We really want to have a mix of both. The younger they are, the less we're going to use those natural rewards. The more it's going to be motivated logically. For instance, when I'm potty training my toddler, I may give them an M&M every time they use the potty successfully. That is going to be something that I'm doing to teach a skill. They're really little and they don't understand those abstract concepts yet. As they get older and they learn about language and these more abstract concepts, we're able to utilize more and more natural rewards. And as they get closer to adulthood, as they're getting into those teen years, and getting 16, 17, 18, we're really relying on more and more of these natural rewards to motivate their behaviors, and providing some narrative as well. So I just gave some examples of some natural rewards 10-year-old Stella might experience. So when she practices positive social skills with her peers, she has lots of friends. That's a natural reward of that. When she tells the truth often, she receives trust from others. Some logical rewards are Stella helps sister with homework, and so she gets to stay up past her bedtime. Another one is she improved her grades between the first conference and the second conference of the school year, and so we stopped and had a special treat on the way home. So you could write examples that are similar to mine, or maybe you have different ones that you already use. Go ahead and pause the video while you fill this page out, and I'm going to move on to the next page. Once you're done with that reward side, you can turn the page and see that we have natural consequences to correct off-track behavior. So again, the older we get, the more we're going to be relying on those natural consequences, because they're not going to be in our house soon into adulthood, and it's not going to be about me grounding them. I want them to be able to have a narrative around those natural consequences that they experience, so that they can connect that cause and effect. It's really important that they experience those natural consequences, and it's really important that I give a narration around it. So again, a natural consequence is something the universe puts upon me. If I go outside without a jacket on in the rain, I'm going to be wet. And if I'm going to school or work, I'm going to carry that wetness into school or work with me. That's a natural consequence. It's important that as they age and they experience those natural consequences, we don't use it as a way to shame them, but we use it as a platform to help them learn some new skills. So some examples of natural consequences I said and now I made Stella 14 just so I can give some examples of different ages. So 14-year-old Stella said something mean to her sister. And so this natural consequence could be feelings of guilt. And so maybe Stella tells me that she feels bad about what she said. And so I want to validate what she's feeling, and I don't want to shame her, and I want to give her examples or ideas on what she could do to relieve that guilt, because that's really the skill I want her to take into adulthood. So if 14-year-old Stella came to me and said that she's feeling guilty for saying mean things to her sister, I may say something like, oh, yes, that really makes me feel icky in my stomach too. I wonder if there's anything you could say to her to make up for it. Maybe you want to apologize, or maybe you want to tell her that you wish that you wouldn't have said that, and that you were speaking out of anger. Something like that. Again, I'm not shaming. I'm not saying, oh, that was so mean and awful of you. I can't believe you did that. because that's not going to tell her to come back to me and share these feelings with me, and I want to help her navigate through it. And also, I think we've all said things that we regret, and so we want to teach our 14-year-olds that we are responsible for our words, and also we can make amends with people as well. So another natural consequence could be that she didn't study for the test, and now she has a bad test grade. And so maybe she brings that home to me and shows it to me. Again, I don't want to shame her and say, oh, you never listen. I told you to study and you never do that. I'm just so tired of you not listening to what I have to say. I may want to say something like, ugh, how I know that you're probably not feeling good about that grade. What do you think we need to do different in this house next time, before the next test? Maybe it's that there's no TV on test day. Maybe it's that we study together and make flashcards together. Maybe it's that we don't go out the weekend before so that we can study and be ready for that test. I can make modifications to the way we run things in our home to respond to something that happened without making it a punishment shame situation. So some logical consequences, logical consequences to correct off-track behavior. One could be a 14-year-old didn't put their bike away, and so they have now lost their bike for the weekend. Another could be that they didn't finish their chores, so now they aren't earning their allowance. It's really important that before we give these consequences, that we have communicated that that is what's going to happen. So the first time Stella leaves her bike out, I don't want to say, that's it, you've lost it for the weekend because you left it out. I want to say, Stella, I need you to go put your bike away, and if you don't put it away when you're done, next time you'll lose it for the weekend. So we want to make sure that we're communicating our expectations very clearly all the time. Otherwise, it's not fair to hold them to that. So if we were in class together, we would be doing this group activity like is going to be displayed on these videos. We aren't in class, obviously, and so I want to I wanted to still demonstrate the activity, and thankfully I found the Parenting Inside Out videos that they had recorded inside the prison. The curriculums are a little the same and a little bit different, but this activity specifically is the same. So we're going to go ahead and watch this group go through this particular activity. And if you want, you can grab a piece of paper and a pen and you can brainstorm your ideas along with it as well, or you can just watch what they are doing.
In this class, we're going to continue down the road of talking about providing discipline and structure for our children. And so we're going to talk today about timeout and a little bit about spanking. So just to lay the good groundwork for what we're going to be doing, could somebody give me a definition of what your idea is of timeout? Because there's lots of different ideas people have. Yes?
Sending a kid to their room without dinner.
Okay.
Having to sit in the corner and face just the corner without any outside influence.
Yep, I think a lot of parents use that practice as well, calling it timeout. Anything else?
In our culture, African American culture, we didn't really do a lot of timeouts. We did more spanking than timeout.
Okay, so you're not too familiar with what timeout is or what it's about. Okay. So just to get us all on the same page and for how I'm going to be coaching and what we're going to be looking at about timeout, and for the sake of what we're going to be doing today, timeout is a brief and mild consequence that you give kids when there's a behavior, some way that they're acting out that you want to be able to correct and provide guidance to them by asking them and removing them from the family or from a situation for 5 to 10 minutes until you think that they're ready to come back and re-engage with whatever it is. So it's a way of interrupting the behavior and just separating them. So that's how we're going to define timeout. For when we're talking today about timeout, that's what we mean. Okay? So we're going to start by comparing and contrasting the difference between spanking and timeout. So you were saying, Grover, that in your culture, in your family, you use spanking as a discipline. There's reasons why families spank. So what are the advantages of using spanking?
Quick fix.
It's a quick fix. Okay. What else? Any other advantage of using spanking?
I think it teaches physical pain as a discipline tool, which that means harm to your body, which is a good thing
Using
to
that
correlate bad
as an
behavior to.
advantage, using pain as an advantage, like, okay. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the disadvantages of using spanking as a discipline tool. What are some of the disadvantages?
It creates resentment.
What else?
Like Trevor said, it could have a psychological effect regarding pain.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to do the same for timeout. According to our definition of what we're saying timeout is, what do you think some of the advantages are of using timeout as a disciplinary tool?
It's non-violent. It might give both the child and the parent a break.
It's a break. What do you think some of the disadvantages are of using timeout?
Doesn't work.
It takes a long period of time for it to affect.
Mm-hmm. Good. It's a nice list. So we have a nice list of comparing and contrasting timeout and spanking. So we're going to do a little bit more depth on this. And we're going to look at who this impacts the most, the child or the parent. Remembering, let me clarify, this is a very symbiotic relationship. So if spanking is the parent's choice of discipline, the parent is spanking and the child is receiving it. So they're both in it. It's going to impact them both. But we're going to look at who, in terms of the advantages and the disadvantages, who's using this to their advantage, who's mostly disadvantaged from this. So choose parent or child if you can. All right? So let's go. Disadvantage is a quick fix. Is that mostly an advantage to the parent or to the child?
Okay.
The convenience of it. Pain.
Parent.
Okay, the disadvantages. It creates resentment. Is that mostly a disadvantage to the child or the parent?
Child.
Child. The psychological effect, is that mostly?
Child.
Now let's do the same for timeout. Is it mostly an advantage that is non-violent to the child or to the parent?
Child.
And it gives time for a break.
Parent.
Yes. The disadvantage, it doesn't work.
Ultimately, the child.
Agree? takes time for it to affect. I think you meant time to implement it, or
Right,
before
takes too long to
to do it. You have to
do it.
spend 5 or 10 minutes on
you
it.
have to
Maybe
monitor it.
monitor it. Okay, all right. So is that mostly a disadvantage to the parent or to the child?
Parent.
Parent. All right, now we're going to look at, is this a long-term impact or a short-term? So short-term, by tomorrow, everybody's going to forget about this whole deal. Long-term, you know, you're going to have some dramatic, ongoing things going on with it. All right, so advantages of spanking is a quick fix. Is that long-term or short-term advantage?
Short term.
The advantage of using pain to motivate your kids to do what you want.
Probably long. I would say long term.
Yeah.
Long term.
Disadvantage is it creates resentment in the child
Long
Long
term.
term.
and possible psychological effects
Long
wondering
term.
for the child. Okay. On timeout, that it's non-violent, is that a long-term advantage or short-term?
Short.
No.
Probably long.
No.
It's always
Non-violent.
Will always be non.
Just like quick fixes.
It's no, but the majority.
Okay, we'll go long-term on this one. That it gives the child, oh no, the parent, gives the parent a break from that child acting out.
Short term.
Short-term just for the moment or for the afternoon, whatever. Okay. Disadvantages, doesn't work. Is that a long-term or short-term? It says short. Do you guys
Because
agree?
you're just giving time out. So it has to work at different times. Every time you give it, because you're supposed to give the same time out every time. So it might not work the first time, but it could work the second time. It could work the third time.
Okay. So you're saying short-term. Do you agree with that? Where he's coming from on that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Takes time for it to affect.
Long term.
Okay, good work. So what do you notice about the advantages and disadvantages of spanking a timeout by the work that you did up here? What conclusions can you come to?
The disadvantages mostly affect the child, and the advantages mostly affect the parent when you're looking at the board.
Spanking is more long term than with a timeout. It's about 50-50.
On the disadvantages?
Just,
Oh, all the way around.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So there's some long-term impact with the spanking and some shorter-term things. So if we could eliminate some of these disadvantages of saying if we could practice and figure out how to use the skill, make it a tool that would work, and you know, you could figure out some time for it to would work. Would that be be interested in that? Is that something you're open to? Something you haven't tried before to look at? Good. All right. Well, we're going to look at that next and see what we come up with using some tools, because you're absolutely right. Sometimes timeout is not appropriate for all settings. It does not work for all settings, and for all kids either. So you kind of have to know your family and how to use the tools for them to be appropriate, because we have tools in our toolbox. Doesn't mean we know how to use them, right? So we have to know how to use the tools that are in our toolbox for them to be effective. So that's what we're going to be practicing today. We're going to use timeout. How do we use it right or not use it at all?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the video there, and we'll get back together on the next one.